In 1974, Bruce McLaren's unfulfilled dreams were achieved by the team he left behind. Emerson Fittipaldi became World Formula One Drivers' Champion in a McLaren. The team won the Formula One Constructors' Championship, and they had their long-awaited Indy 500 win by Johnny Rutherford.
A lot of people don't realise what an achievement it was for McLaren to win the Indy 500. But I can tell you that it is not dissimilar to winning the America's Cup.
Tragically, that same year, Peter Revson was killed in front of his good friend Denny Hulme.
But he didn't want to believe that it was Peter. He was trying to make out that it wasn't Peter, it was somebody else. It wasn't Peter, it couldn't be Peter.
I know that Denny was first on the scene and Revson was very badly injured and killed.
And I think, when reality hit home, I think that was why he decided to quit the end of that year.
Although no longer at the wheel, Denny couldn't stay away from engines. From the fastest machinery in the world, he shifted his attention to the slowest.
He liked to go to steam and traction engine fairs and see all this old machinery working, and he just had an affinity towards getting something like that going again.
I know Denny always had this affinity with things mechanical.
I remember he had a collection of stationary engines, which were one-cylinder chug-chug things, and Dennis wouldn't have one or two. He had a whole lawn full of these things all plugging away together.
Without a full-time Formula One drive, Chris Amon returned to New Zealand, but he was not yet ready to retire.
Did the Tasman series as such out here in '75 with a Talon 5000 car, and actually quite enjoyed that.
He still received the occasional Formula One offer.
Ensign was a very small, once again underfunded team, but I went and did the Austrian Grand Prix and liked the car and felt it had a lot of potential, and they wanted me to continue for the rest of the season, which I did.
In 1976, Chris decided to hang up his helmet for good.
I don't think I'm going to do any more Formula One. I'm slightly disillusioned. I felt I'd had enough. I'd been going for, 13 years basically. I think you've got to wake up one morning and say, right, that's it, I'm finished. I must say, when I stopped, I really felt that I'd had enough and was quite happy to stop.
He married and settled down. Well, almost.
I got involved in a television program called Motor Show. Basically, we were told to get out there, try these various cars out and say what we really thought about them.
Not a very nice feel coming through the steering wheel.
Out of the blue one day, I got a call from somebody at Toyota New Zealand who said something to the effect that if you think our cars are so bad, why don't you come and help us fix them? And that was the beginning of the relationship.
Toyota used the driving genius that Enzo Ferrari called the best test driver I ever had. Your own Chris Amon.
In his retirement, Denny was able to share his passion for racing with his son Martin when they competed together in motocross. But tragedy struck on Christmas Day, 1988. Martin was the victim of a swimming accident at Lake Rotuiti.
He belly busted into the water, which forced he inhaled his Christmas dinner. So for a long time, just Anita and I tried CPR. I wasn't brave enough to do a tracheotomy. This was impossible, absolutely impossible. If I went to him for comfort, he was like a steel rod. I'd have to back off. When he was upset, if I went to him, he would just reject me. I thought, well, he's blaming me.
The loss of their son had a profound effect on the marriage, a marriage that had begun as a two-person race team taking on the world. Motor racing had given Denny fame and glory, but it had also taken away many of his friends. Greta had always been there to console him, but now she had her own grief to overcome. Eventually, Denny left. At an age when most drivers would retire, Denny threw himself into truck racing.
I think this is going to be a new start of probably a new career for myself. It's interesting from the point of view I've driven most things, but I've never actually raced a truck.
In 1992, Denny travelled to Goodwood in England, where at a ceremony to dedicate a monument to Bruce McLaren, he demonstrated a Can-Am car.
Apparently he'd driven this Can-Am car around on a demonstration lap and what have you, and when he'd come back into the pits, he apparently had this really crushing chest pain. He didn't say anything, but he was very pale, and somebody said to him, "You should go and see a doctor." Nobody had touched him because, you know, they just think, oh, he's just having a trip down memory lane and just enjoying, just reminiscing.
And he was in 14th position with this incident.
In October that year, heart trouble struck again.
And he was telling Frank in the pits that he had trouble seeing. But I think that he was probably blacking out, concentrating so hard on keeping the car on the island and not bending it and getting it back to the pits, that he was actually blacking out. And so Frank's interpreted it that it's the conditions, but it's really Dennis blacking out. And so when he's got it off the mountain and it's wobbled off, it's gone off and kissed the wall on the infield, and then he suddenly sort of realised, well, nobody can get the car from here. So he's wobbled it all the way across to the other side and actually put his foot on the brake and stopped it. He would have hoped that they could have got the car back to the pits, but it was all too late. And I just think the stress of just keeping it on the island, not bending it, getting it back, trying to get it back to the pits, just took a toll on him.
But for all his pain and misery that June, it was Denny who rallied the team and kept it together when it could so easily have fallen apart. Denny who gave the guys the will to carry on and keep winning. This is not something I wanted to do and not somewhere I wanted to be standing today, but I'm honoured to have been able to remember and honour the mate I knew. And I'd like to think that perhaps it's reminded you all of the Denny you knew too. Godspeed, old mate.
Since the 1980s, Ron Dennis has been at the helm of McLaren. Under him, and with great drivers such as Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, the team won the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships for 4 consecutive years. And today, on the front row of any Formula One grid, there's usually a McLaren.
The current team is a genuine extension of the original team, and in conversations I have had with Ron Dennis, I have to say that he has said to me, and quite genuinely, he has said to me, look, I know we've been successful, but he said, I realise what we inherited. And he said it would have been real difficult without that.
If you look how passionate and proud the Italians are of Ferrari, I think New Zealanders should be equally as proud of the name McLaren. But a lot of New Zealanders don't make the connection between the current Formula One team and the man that started it all.
The monuments to the achievements of these 3 New Zealanders are few and far between. You have to know where to look to find them. There's the odd road sign, a playground there, a park here, and there's a school that proudly takes Bruce McLaren's inspiring words as its motto. Many of the cars that carried our trio to the top have been repatriated and restored, and this proud chapter of our sporting heritage is being kept alive by the Bruce McLaren Trust.
The aims of the Bruce McLaren Trust really are to preserve and protect and promote that history and heritage of Bruce McLaren, Denny Hulme and of course Chris Amon, because those 3 were definitely the trio at the top as far as New Zealand motor racing in those days.
I think I was so fortunate in being able to do the Grand Prix seasons during the 60s and the 70s. They were great days. I mean, just great fun apart from anything else.
Formula One is not a sport anymore. Formula One is a business, and it's a great business, and it's not a sport.
I don't think we'll ever get a golden age of motor racing back here again, such as we knew it when Bruce, Chris and Denny were racing. That was just a magic 10 years.
something that's been so much part of your life for so long, inevitably it sticks in the memory. I think the nice thing is that as time goes by, you remember the good times and not the bad times, which can't be bad.